Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and you're listening to the Inforvest podcast. It is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, and I'm just going to go through quickly here what to expect in the markets for today and touch up on any news overnight during the overnight session and talk about just the market recap from yesterday. So just to recap, the equities ended up higher yesterday, rallying all day. The S&P 500, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell, all the indices went up due to positive vaccine news and, most importantly, the headline from McConnell on him easing up on the stimulus bill. There have been a lot of, before November, between McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, there have been a lot of kind of animosity between the two on getting a bill out, getting a stimulus bill out and helping their fellow Americans. And a lot of it, you could say, was political due to the presidential elections in November. But now we're past that, and we're seeing there is a little bit of an agreement on both sides, especially from McConnell, who over and over was very strong on certain points that he wanted to get across in that bill. Initially, the bill before November was they were expecting to get a number between 1 to 2 trillion, but that didn't happen. The new expected number of a stimulus bill being passed out is about $908 billion, so close to that $1 trillion mark. Biden did say that next year, as the president-elect, once he's in, he expects to push out more of a stronger stimulus bill and get more money out into the economy and into the pockets of Americans. And now, in order for that to happen, you have to remember that we still have Georgia Senate runoff still happening, and we expect the results in January. I believe it's January 5th to be exact. So at 7 p.m. they will close the results, and that's the day you mark it on your calendars to watch out for the Senate result. Why this is important? Because the Senate, you want to make sure who is owning the majority. Is it the Democrats or is it the Republicans? If it's the Republicans, then you know it will be kind of a gridlock in the sense that it will be hard for Biden to push many of his policies. It may be seen as a bad thing initially, but it could be a good thing, as there are some policies that investors and traders don't like, such as Biden's tax plan. And if that is held off, or if his tax plan doesn't go through, then markets will like that. Now, on the other side, controversy side, other stimulus money talks and bills being pushed out, that can be an issue when you have a divided Congress. And you can expect clean energy, as Biden talked about in November and in October, him wanting to push out a lot of money into the clean energy space. You can expect that to also slow down. So it's very important to see who will take majority of the Senate, and based on that, that will kind of shape out the future of a lot of the stocks. Whether it's clean energy, whether it's cannabis, whether it's crypto or what have you. So something to look forward to in January. And we did see overnight, in the overnight session, a gap up. We had a gap up in the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, and the gap up still remains to be filled, and we're still overnight. We didn't make much movement. We've been kind of consolidating. We are coming off a little bit now as I speak. So as I speak, the S&P right now is at 3,707. The Russell's at 1,929, close to that $2,000 mark. And the NASDAQ is about 12,622, and the Dow is about 30,261. Today is expected to be, in terms of the schedule and the calendar, a quiet day. Not much other than the Bank of Canada is expected to give their kind of rate statement, their interest rate statement and interest rate decision. Canada's interest rate decision is expected to stay the same. It's not expected to change at 0.25%. And you can expect the usual of Bank of Canada coming out and talking about the same rhetoric that they said in the past about keeping rates as it is, and they're more willing to do things if the virus becomes worse off in Canada. The QE and the forward guidance are also expected to remain unchanged. So there will not be any updated forecast or no post-meeting presser. So same as usual. So shouldn't see, everything's expected, so shouldn't see much of a rally in the CAD. As I look at the CAD right now, it is at spot 7.8 against the dollar. And in terms of anything else on the economic calendar, we could see U.S. wholesale inventories for October will be released at 10 a.m. And sorry, forgot to mention, Bank of Canada's rate statement is also at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And the U.S. wholesale inventories 10 a.m. Eastern Time as well. We do have crude oil inventories that is expected to be released. So the expected for crude oil is about negative 2.358 million, and for the others, the distillates at 1.41 million and gasoline at 2.27 million. In terms of API numbers came in yesterday. Crude came in at a build at 1.141 million against the expected negative 700,000. Cushing came at negative 1.845 million. Gasoline at a build. Sorry, Cushing was a draw, and gasoline was a build. Is a build of 6.442 million, which is the biggest since April. So gasoline came in as a huge build, and distillates came in as a build of 2.316. For those who are new, build is basically oversupply and draw is undersupply. When you have an oversupply in oil, you see oil prices fall, and when you have that's a build, and when you have an undersupply, you have the oil prices rise. So when API came out yesterday, we had an initial dip, and then it was bought up. And then afterwards, after the futures close, the markets close, and then futures opened at 6 p.m. Eastern time afterwards, we had, again, a little bit of a sell-off back to the point where it was bought up. And then, again, we had buyers that came in and purchased the lows of API. and overnight crude and gasoline both shot up. As I speak right now, gasoline's at 1.26 and crude is at 45.93, and we are just still in kind of a rally mode. And so what to expect today at 10:30 a.m. when the crude inventory numbers come out is, because we had already a pretty big build in gasoline and a build in crude, we can expect the same in today's numbers. So for me, as I look at this, the build is expected. Any drop in oil prices or gasoline in the DOE numbers today is expected. So I would assume that the dip will be bought on crude and gasoline, especially if the number is less than the API expected. If the number comes in larger than the API expected, then you can for sure see a sell-off, and then maybe some short covering afterwards. And if the numbers come in completely opposite of a draw, then for sure we can see huge rally in crude and gasoline. Russia's energy minister also came out, Novak. He mentioned that the next OPEC Plus meeting will happen on 4th of January next year, so keep an eye on that. Just to recap, OPEC had a meeting just recently with all the OPEC members and OPEC Plus members, and they decided to, initially they were going to leave cuts for 3 months to help kind of sustain the oil prices. And the expected number of decreasing those cuts was about, I believe, 1.9 million barrels per day. However, after the OPEC meeting, it came out to be that OPEC and OPEC Plus have agreed that they will increase production by 500,000 barrels per day for about 3 months until March, and then see kind of where things go from there. So yes, you had kind of they did agree on increasing production. Oil prices that day did fall quickly, but it was bought up as it was less than expected. So coming back to Novak's meeting that will happen on January 4th, the couple of comments that he mentioned was that output recovery pace depends on the market conditions. So again, like OPEC and OPEC Plus mentioned, that they will continue to monitor the virus, the vaccine, the demand and the supply, and based on that, they will produce more or not. As we see it today, the vaccine and there's a lot of positive news around the vaccine, and it is coming out, and we are starting to see demand starting to increase, especially in Asia, especially in China, as we see more oil production, more use of oil in China. And Novak also mentioned OPEC Plus decision on output is in Russia's interest, and to raise output by 31% in January versus the minimal level this year. So something to look out, just to watch out for OPEC Plus and OPEC members, what they're doing when it comes to production. It's kind of how I see oil. I kind of expect many of the countries to start pumping more oil and start producing more, and especially kind of some of the countries cheating a little bit, going above their 500,000 number. So that's kind of expected. We are seeing oil prices being propped up today. Every time they sell off, they are being bought up today. And it's mainly because demand is coming back, and mainly because this vaccine news is positive, and that's coming back also. So until things settle down, maybe oil could reach to level of $50, and until things settle down, until things are back to normal, until more supply is back into the system and demand is back into the system, and it's back to equal again, probably you could see this rally in oil kind of fade. In other news, Merkel, she commented, Germany's Merkel, Angela Merkel, she mentioned that, she said, we won't be able to do enough vaccinations in Q1 to bring about a major change in the pandemic. So, I mean, that's kind of expected. Many countries are on the same boat as well. You'll have the initial move of vaccine being pushed out in many countries, especially in the U.S., where Trump did come out last night actually and talked about the vaccine coming out soon. The military general who's in charge of this mentioned that the rollout of the vaccine could be delayed by 4 days, but it doesn't really matter. It is coming out. The vaccine is being pushed out to, starting off with the elderly people. And as the months go by, we expect probably Q2 for most of the vaccine to be out. So probably in the summertime, in June, you can expect more of the vaccine coming out. And as the year progresses and as we get to the end of the year, we will see more of this vaccine again being rolled out into many other countries, and the production from many of the companies like Pfizer and Moderna and so on rolling out, Novavax also rolling out these vaccines to the US, Canada, Asia, and many other countries as well. The UK also have put out the vaccine. The UK has actually got their first person to take the vaccine, and there was a photo out there, I think on Reuters or wherever, you've probably seen it on social media, where there's this older man sitting there, or this woman, where they had a vaccine kind of being put into them and a needle going into them. So the UK has already started on that, which is positive news. However, what's holding the pound is this Brexit talk. As I look right now at the pound, it's at right now 1.34. We did rally overnight. The thing about the pound you want to be careful with is, again, this Brexit issue. You want to make sure that you're not getting too ahead of yourself, because there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of news coming out, and a lot of them is noise. You have once in a while you have positive news that, oh, Brexit is going very well. You have UK Boris Johnson saying negotiations are going well, and then you'll have the Irish PM saying that, oh, it's not going well. So, I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of choppiness. It's hard to play it. They are expected to come up with an agreement by December 31st of this year, December 31st, 2020. And they're supposed to, both sides, the EU and the UK, is supposed to come to an agreement. So we'll have to watch out. We have about 3 weeks left. RBC did say that if they didn't come up with a deal by then, you could have a massive plunge in the pound against the dollar. So they expect about 6% plunge. And if they do go through, you could see the pound rallying, and you could see a relief rally probably to 1.4. So we'll have to watch and monitor the kind of news and what comes out. It is Wednesday. Boris Johnson is going and meeting with Ursula today. They're having dinner today, so they're going to be talking about Brexit negotiations. So we'll see if anything comes out from there. If not, it could be pushed out to the weekend, and if not, then you've got 2-3 weeks till something comes out, something positive comes out. The chances of a deal going through, not deal going through, it's very hard to say. People are pricing in it's a 50-50. It's a coin toss. My guess is as good as yours, and your guess is as good as the person next to you. So we'll have to see how things progress in that. There's this debate floating around that there could be a grace period that EU could and the EU and UK could agree on. So if not December 31st, maybe they'll extend it into January. I think initially the markets will take that negatively, the pound especially, and then you could see probably a relief rally later on. So hard to say with the pound, hard to say with Brexit. It's a 50-50. We'll have to just keep monitoring it. In terms of the U.S. Treasury, the bond prices are down as we speak, both all throughout the 2-year, the 10-year, the 30-year, so on. And U.S. Treasury yields were lower as investors tried to judge how quickly the vaccines could be distributed to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's why we saw a rally yesterday and overnight. But now that has faded and we have come off. Gold also rallied a lot yesterday, and now overnight it's fading, that rally. So gold and silver is dependent on the movement of it is there's a couple of factors. One is the U.S. dollar. As the U.S. dollar depreciates, you could see the commodity prices being held up. And also, depends on what the Fed is going to do. The Fed is actually going to meet this month, next week. And based on what they're going to do, are they going to buy more bonds? Are they going to do more quantitative easing, more printing of the dollar? If that happens, you could see a lot of gold prices skyrocketing, commodities skyrocketing based on that. Silver especially. We did have a big rally this year in gold and silver. It was a great trade. We had, the Fed come in and kind of save the markets, and gold did rally because of all that QE. Now, if the Fed decides to slow down on the QE, then probably you could see gold and silver and other commodities probably slow down, but it's not a hard and fast rule. They are continuing with QE. It's just a matter of how much more. Is there going to be more? Is the Fed going to be doing any yield curve control? Is there going to be more issuance of the long end? And also with the new Treasury, Janet Yellen, what is she expected to do? How's Janet Yellen and Powell expected to work together in January or in the next year? So that's another thing. I mean, Janet Yellen was, for those who don't know, Janet Yellen was the chair Fed before Powell, and she was known as a dove, which is someone who is pro the markets, who is very giving in terms of doing a lot of QE, keeping rates low, and so on. So bringing that transition into kind of a treasury position it could be good for the markets. Markets like that. So let's see what happens. You could have the same rhetoric from the Fed saying that, hey, we're going to leave it up to the U.S. Treasury. The U.S. Treasury has to come out and save the markets. They have to come out with that stimulus bill. Again, all eyes on that stimulus bill. So, next week we could have yields pushing up higher just because the Fed not willing to do much and kind of pushing and throwing the buck to Janet Yellen. So it could have a little bit of a bond sell-off in that sense. So let's see what happens. And then based on the news, we could go from there. Now, for the ECB and the euro, the ECB set to boost the lengthen the QE as the pandemic continues to grow in Europe. And further asset purchases are likely. Bank extended the PEPP through December 2021. And as I sit here, the euro right now is at 1.21. We did have a rally in the euro against the US dollar. So this is going to be interesting because they are doing everything in terms of QE. They are pumping more money into the system. In terms of rate cuts, they're already negative, so how much more can they do in terms of that? It'll be interesting to see if they say anything or do anything to lower the euro, just because it's propped up, it's higher right now. And that can be an issue on their inflation front, especially because they are having an inflation issue. So, a country cannot come out and say that we're going to manipulate the currency, because then you'll be labeled as a currency manipulator. But it'll be interesting to see if they make any comments about the euro. Right now they have said that they're not bothered by it, and they're not setting any kind of ceiling on the euro. So we'll have to see how that develops. Could the euro come off? Possibly. It has gone up a lot, but we'll have to see. It all depends in relative with the US dollar. If we see the US dollar start to pick up and the Fed is, less dovish than expected, you could have a rally in the US dollar and the euro falling on that. In terms of individual stocks, we had Tesla launch a second $5 billion share sale in 3 months. So that kind of pushed Tesla shares lower. U.S. airline passenger traffic is down 62% in October. So U.S. airlines carried 62% fewer passengers in October over the same month last year. The U.S. Transportation Department's quoting U.S. Transportation Department. The 62% decline from October 2019 was the smallest year-to-year decrease since March, when the coronavirus pandemic slashed U.S. travel demand. So, in terms of airlines, they are picking up right now. They're still lagging. They still have a long way to go. As more vaccine news comes out and as more demand starts to pick up, we did have a large increase in demand during Thanksgiving time. But again, as that demand comes in, as more positive vaccine news comes in, we can see airlines being picked up again. And in terms of any IPOs, DoorDash is expected to come out. And DoorDash is a U.S. food delivery startup, and its shares are expected to be on the New York Stock Exchange, and they're looking to raise about $2.8 billion at a valuation of $27 billion. So this is one of the largest IPOs that are coming out. There's other ones that are coming out as well. So in terms of IPOs, DoorDash is one on the hot list. So just to sum up, overall today expected to be kind of a quiet day in terms of the economic data. Other than you have the Bank of Canada rate statement at 10 a.m. and the crude inventories at 10:30 a.m. Today, can we see a massive rally today like we did yesterday? It would all be dependent on headlines. Any major headlines that would come out, if it's positive or negative. Negative, we will probably retrace most of that move yesterday. If positive, then we'll go up higher. S&P is close to that 4,000 mark. We're at 3,700. Russell's at 1,900. We're close to that 2,000 mark. We're getting there. And then once the stimulus bill comes out, you can see a big push, a big rise into those areas, especially the NASDAQ and the Dow. So for today, probably could have, I'm guessing today would be quiet and just consolidation, just kind of trading sideways today in the markets, unless something big or headline comes out that could shape things differently. Could we get some? Today I'm kind of leading to a short bias. I'm kind of leading towards getting a long liquidation and expecting some profit taking to come in. But we'll have to see. Usually after a big move like that, you do get some consolidation. Maybe the long liquidation may come tomorrow. So we'll have to monitor that and see how that goes. Other than that, as I look at my screen right now, everything is pretty steady. Euro's up. Pound is slowly coming off. NASDAQ is kind of picking up a bid. The Russell 2000s kind of added it at the same place. Same with the Dow. Crude and gasoline have picked up bids. So for the oil front, you have to wait for 10:30 for the numbers to come out. Other than that, hope this was useful and hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you, or hope you will be joining us on the next podcast. Thanks again. Bye.